I get these bad boys in, but
Oh,
anyways,
I'm being monitored. That's recording me. What is this? Is there someone in there?
yes. Hello? 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 Hello?
Hello?
Okay.
Hello? Hello?
Hi. Wonderful start already. Yeah. Boop. So anyways, hi, I'm Robert, and thank you for tuning into Station Square on Friday afternoon, and the sun is finally coming out. Like, wow, who would have thunk it? Yeah, after like weeks on end with just nothing but clouds, and I mean, LA weather is kind of it's whatever, but today we're just gonna be chilling and just talking about anything. So I have, as you can see, I already have the special guest, right beside me. This is and I am terrible with names, so please forgive.
Oh no!
Yeah,
Stuffed from the start! Yo, I'm Melly Grant. How's it going?
Melly. Okay, yeah, probably would have been a good idea to,
Voice
but
actor.
anyways,
Um,
yeah.
Voice actor. I went into school for stage and screen acting. I worked in retail for 10 years because I was scared. And eventually I worked up the courage to give it a shot. And now I voice a playable character in one of the most popular AAA games on the internet. And that's insane to me. I'm from New York. I did some time in Dallas, and that makes it sound like they locked me up there. And now I'm out in LA. I am also, as it turns out, pre-debut VTuber because you fall down funny rabbit holes sometimes, and so now I also stream 5 days a week as like a second part of my career, which is insane. I'm very fortunate right now, and it's a huge privilege that is not lost on me that as someone who worked 40 hours a week in retail for literally a decade of my freaking life, I now support myself fully creatively. And I never, ever thought that would happen. So I'm really, really excited to be here. And thank you for having
Yeah,
me.
anytime. At least we got the bio introduction out of the way, and
I just went for it. I don't know if that was what you were going to ask me, but
uh,
I just
I mean,
went.
I like it when people just go right into it without me having to, But at least, yeah, we got that out of the way. But yeah, congrats on. It's really funny how VTubing has kind of. There's like a lot of like silver linings during the pandemic. It's like remote recording kind of picked up, as you can kind of see right here. And also VTubing, which has been exploding since, especially over the last few years. Like, I know that it's a wild, strange little journey. Like, personally, for me, I'm seeing all of these, like so many actors, my friends that are just starting to get into the VTubing space, and it's like, man, well, I don't understand it all, but you know what? If it works for you and it's really hot right now, good. Like, it's hats off to you because, like, man, there's so much to learn when it comes to. I mean, it's pretty much for anything. Like, you want to be an actor, there's a lot that you need to learn the ropes. If you want to be a VTuber, kind of the same thing. I feel like each of them kind of come with their own set of, like, um, it's like a whole different can of worms that I've noticed when it comes to, VTubing. I mean, for voice acting, it's like there's, the pros and cons, and with VTubing, that's a whole different ballpark altogether. So I'm like, wow, that is there. It's like when you're doing anything, like you dedicate a lot of time to it. Like there's so much time that goes into it, and you gotta, you know, like it is a huge commitment, and that's kind of like my first piece of unsolicited advice if I'm gonna give out like right off the bat. It's like, yeah, this stuff takes a lot of time and it's a commitment. So it's like something that you gotta be well prepared for.
Yeah,
Like I know they say that luck, success, like preparation, actually luck and preparation equals success. So yeah, I guess that's my little piece of advice just to open up this little episode.
it's been a wild experiment. I mean, like, so I went to
Yeah,
school for stage and
experimenting.
screen
Yeah.
acting, and
Hmm.
I thought that I wanted to do on camera, and this was way before I figured myself out as a person, and I had a whole lot of, crap emotionally going on in my life. So like it was really hard for me to
Yeah.
take it as seriously as I wanted to. But I thought I wanted to do, film and television, and I've been through this there's been this whole journey because when I was a kid, I was positive I wanted to do movies, and I did musicals and theater throughout middle school and high school. And so like when I was graduating, like everyone's parents would be like, I can't wait to see you on Broadway, and I'd be like that little shit kid. Can I curse? I'm sorry.
It's PG.
I was that little, that little crappy little kid who would be like, actually, I'm gonna be on television and movies.
Well, actually,
Actually, and then at some point along the way, I fell in love with voiceover and eventually dove into that. I've also done writing, ADR script writing for anime. I've done that for the past couple like year or two. I've written for some cool shows. I wrote the English dub of "Don't Toy with Me, Miss Nagatoro" is probably the most infamous show that I'm responsible for the English version of.
yep, that
Um,
show.
I also worked on Pretty Boy Detective Club and An Honor at Magic High and something else that is escaping my and Orient, which was an awesome show starring Stephen Fu and AJ Beckles in the English version. It
AJ.
was super freaking cool. AJ's amazing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I've done writing as well, but at the end of the day, like already blessed to be working creatively to pay my bills, but I'm a storyteller and primarily an entertainer and an actor at the end of the day. So I would say that writing gets me partway there, but I like interacting with the community, with fans, and I like being the one crafting and delivering the story with my face. And so as an actor, that's fulfilled. And I think that's one of the things that was really interesting to me about VTubing too, because despite being in kind of a strange place uh, as a visible person with a platform, far from the first, because at least in the VTube space, you have people like Amelie and Alejandro Saab and Jonah Scott and other
Yeah.
visible
Yep.
actors who have jumped into that space, but like already feeling a little bit like an outsider of that community originally because I've like got a face. Um, I'm fascinated by the idea of creating your own IPs in your own world and your own lore and different vehicles to tell those stories and to kind of create your own little microcosm and like your own little universe and mythos that excuse me that fans can engage with and then start to kind of craft their own fanfics and create their own art and stuff like that. And that's super, super exciting to me. So I had talked about doing that side of my life now for a couple of years, but I think I was just a coward and was afraid to kind of take that first step. And announcing Catalyst, which is the role that I play in Apex Legends, was probably the big gateway to getting me into that world because after I announced it, um, like announcing a big role like that can be and has been life changing. But you don't know what kind of momentum that's going to build and what kind of opportunities are going to come next. So like when I'm just sitting alone in my bedroom, I don't know if like is the next month of my life going to be am I going to be at like all the conventions or am I going to be like suddenly called into like three different video game studios and or is nothing going to happen and I'll be like crying in my car. And a little bit of all of the above, including crying in my car, happened. But what really surprised me was the number of streamers and specifically VTubers that reached out to want to do collabs and have me on and play the game with me. And I started to make friends in that space and suddenly feeling like I'm in that community and making friends and having them be incredibly welcoming and incredibly encouraging and supportive was like the major kickstart I needed to be like, okay, these people are a bunch of badasses doing really awesome stuff and I've been scared for way too long, so I think I need to start playing with that too and make that a facet of my career. And now I'm going on like 7 months still acting, still in studio, still recording. I'm one of the main characters in an anime right now, Kamikatsu, working for God in a Godless World. I play Loki in that, but I'm also engaging with the community and streaming 5 nights a week. And like, if you asked me a year ago if that would have been part of my life, never would have thought that I'd be doing that. Here I am. Who knows? I guess all that is to say is that it's taking that first step, finding the courage to take that leap and try it. Now that I've been there a few times with personal aspects of my life, like transition, since I'm trans, and with jumping from a 10-year career in retail that I was thrilled to be a part of for 5 years and then miserable for the next 5 years, and making the decision to leap into acting, and now being afraid but making the decision to try streaming. That first step is the hardest freaking part. And it takes the most willpower and drive and resolve and like swallowing and like clenching your fists and gritting your teeth and clenching your butt. And when you finally take that leap, there's often, I shouldn't say almost always, but there's often a net that was like right there. And it becomes easier every time to get in there and do that thing that you've wanted to be doing, that maybe you were afraid to start because you were afraid of whether you would succeed or not, or you'd be afraid of whether people would accept you or like you, or think that you're good or not. But once you're doing it, you realize that, yeah, you're probably going to stumble, but that's part of the learning process, and you're going to get better and you're going to keep leveling up. You just have to start.
Yeah.
That
I'm
was like
actually,
a
yeah.
thousand words I could have said in 50, but hopefully that made sense.
No, I mean it's really cool. I like going back to, working in retail, for all this time and, doing theater and stage and whatnot. Would you say that all of these experiences, prior to when you've made the plunge, like making the leap into VO, would you say that it also helped you as you were able to bring or adapt these skills into the world of voice acting?
I think that having a strong acting background is incredibly,
Yeah.
incredibly valuable. And I'm sure I'm probably far from the first person who said that, acting training is the beginning of it, is
Yep.
becoming a good actor, a competitive actor. And I think different sides of my training have informed different things. Um, Oftentimes, at least when you're first learning, anime as a not a genre, that's not the right word, as a medium, because it's there are lots of genres within anime. Anime as a medium is often, not always, but is often very theatrical. Like it's heightened, it's big. There are big, like recognizable archetypes of different types of characters that are themes that exist and like weave their way through multiple different uh, mangas and shows. Um, and so I think my theater background can inform that a lot, because when you're on a stage, you've got to play to the back row. And so having the chops to be able to give that larger than life performance can inform a lot of the work that we do in anime. But I think that having the film and television background and getting used to like what it means to be in frame on like a medium shot or a close up, and what that does to the sound and how intimate the performance is, I think can inform other anime, but definitely informs Western video games, and some Western animation, is knowing how to kind of like pull it in and not do less, but make it more and more intimate and closer and personal, and if you look at my resume, weirdly, I'm someone who came into the anime scene. I'm like this angry girl from Brooklyn who came into the anime scene assuming that I'd be playing like every cranky, like Bakugo, like younger, like cranky anime boy in like shonen shows. I'm sorry, I curse a lot. I'm trying.
It's all
Um,
good. I'm
uh,
always like, I was about to say, is it kind of like you came from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and then you just stumbled into anime? It's kind of like It's
I mean, I
Always
thought I
Sunny,
would
and
be
then,
doing like,
yeah.
like your Ed Elric type characters. And if you look at what I actually do, a lot of people really like listening to me whisper. And I do a lot of more soft spoken, like intense, personal, like, yeah, kind of like really grounded characters. And that's probably why video games seem to like me. And it's probably also why anime doesn't always know what to do with me. And it's probably why a role like Loki fits, because if you look at the Kamikatsu show, it's just this off the wall, zany, fan servicey show. And then you've got this one character who is like a trickster and is sly, but is like the most grounded, like quiet performance of every character in this like crazy zany show. And so it's like, of course, they gave that one to me because that seems to be what I do most of the time. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think different sides of like the different aspects of those trainings have informed a lot. I think that everything is like a tool in your toolbox, but I do think that having a strong acting background is a huge asset. I don't think that it's I don't think that you have to have a theater background, for instance, to get into anime. And there have been a number of cases of actors who have started out squarely as fans and then have decided they wanted to work in anime, and they've worked their butt off to start taking workshops and classes, and then they get in there and they have their own kind of crazy advantage because if they're really in the scene, like they understand the tropes and the expressions and things characters do with their eyes and eyebrows and like, symbols like, like your vein and your sweat drop and stuff that appears on their face and how that informs the performance. And so they have their own like set of secret weapons, and can find a lot of success. But I do think that it is only a benefit to then continue to push yourself as an actor and try to level up as a performer and not just as an anime performer or just as a voiceover performer.
Yeah. And finding your voice, because you mentioned that you're trans, so how much would you say that it also really helped you personally, like as a performer and just as a human being, of finding yourself leading up to, leading up to all of this? Yeah. Because I always love listening to unique stories about, actors and just people in general. I'm a people person.
How does it
That's
inform
me.
my the work that I do as an actor? I would say it definitely presented some challenges. Um,
Yeah.
I got my start in Texas, and the Dallas area is fairly liberal, but Texas, by and large, is very conservative. And so, moving as someone who's LGBT uh, down to Texas was a little terrifying when I first did it. I didn't know what to expect, if people would be cool with me or not, and so I had like my two major challenges first getting into my career were, this is going to sound so funny to say, but like it's just basically what my life has been like. I didn't know how to play female characters. I'd never tried ever. In my head, I was kind of like, I'll do like shonen shows. I know how to scream. I know how to be like I said, like a passionate anime boy, and I'll take it from there. But by the time I got down there, I was scared to kind of like unleash that side of what I can do with my voice because like you don't know how people are going to respond. So I went through this whole arc of like figuring out what kind of female roles that I could play and whose voices I sort of lined up with. And I found a couple of matches, or people that I shared qualities with. Like one of the first ones I've talked about a lot in different streams and interviews is Zelda Williams, Robin Williams' daughter, who was Kuvira in Legend of Korra, and is probably one of the first times that I saw a character in an animated show that I felt sounded like me, but also weirdly looked like me. Like that was bizarre and powerful. Um, uh, and then if you like look at the spectrum, smoother voices but still mature, like I was looking at Colleen Clinkenbeard, and I was looking at Stephanie Young, and I was looking at, uh, if I get really if I drop my voice a little bit, I was looking at Wendy Powell, who played Envy in Full Metal Alchemist and has a voice that's kind of in this range as well. um, and just looking at what they do so I can kind of get a sense of like what can I maybe do. And it sucked. I wasn't great at it at the outset. I had been 10 years away from acting, which meant that a lot of things that I think used to come naturally to me that were instinctive were not anymore. So I sort of like forgot. I had some of the baseline instincts, but I kind of forgot a lot of how to act at all. I just wanted to do it. And so I remember really early on, I took a workshop with the voice actor Crispin Freeman, and I was not out to him. And I'm not in his head. I don't know what he knew or didn't know or researched or assumed or who the hell knows. But, he just met me as I came into the class as a woman with a lower voice. And I did my first character for him. And in Crispin Freeman workshops, you'll do two characters over the course of like a 4-hour workshop, and he'll give you a second character based on what he hears in your voice, and he'll ask you to prepare it, and you'll come back around for a second round. And he gave me this kind of like femme fatale, uh, sort of like softer spoken, sort of, passionate, intense female character. Not unlike what Catalyst ended up being in Apex. And man, I just crashed and burned. It was awful. It was terrible. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And he gave me this lecture at the end of the class where, and I'm going to do like the terrible Crispin Freeman impression, but
Oh, here we go.
where he was just baffled, and he said, like, with your voice and a lower, the lower range that you sit in, this should be something that you should be working on. This range and femme fatale archetypes is something that could be very strong for you. I'm confused as to why you didn't, why you haven't been considering this. You should practice this and take this seriously, because this can be in your wheelhouse. Never had considered it, because I think it scared me, because I'm barely playing female roles at that point in my life to begin with, much less like what I would perceive as like sexy ones. Um, but I worked on it, and I worked my butt off for the next 5 years, kind of just copycatting my friends, listening to people that do it well, and trying to like dig in and be like, what are they doing? How do they do that thing with their voice? Like when they do that whisper thing, like if I add more breath, what does that sound like? If I add more melody and I kind of like, like make it more melodic and travel up and down the vocal piano, like what does that sound like? And just playing with the instrument and continuing to experiment and get better from there. It took me like 2 years though to unleash male characters, which was probably so dumb on my part, because it was always my strong suit doing like these younger male characters, and I was scared. And it took like 2 years to start actually kind of introducing that and trying to audition for those kinds of characters. So I guess, like, to circle back, because I'm prone to hugely long answers, to what you'd asked me, which was like how it informed. Like it was honestly just every day was an experiment, figuring out like where to even start, what kind of characters I should even be reading for, how do people hear me, like do they just hear me as a woman with a lower voice because I wasn't super out publicly at the time? Do they just hear me as like an alien? Like do they take are you don't get feedback when you audition a lot, so like are they even taking me seriously? Like are there people I can talk to, friends that I can get feedback on, so I can figure out what the heck I have to improve, and how many classes can I find as quickly as possible so I can start getting feedback? Because just reading for roles, you almost never get feedback. You either get a call back or you don't. You get the role or you don't. And so much of what we build in this career hinges on our ability to both self-assess and be really honest with ourselves about where we're at and what we need to improve on. Look at other actors who are further along than we are, try to pick out things that maybe they're doing that are connecting in ways that like we haven't quite cracked yet, and try to dissect that and figure out how can I incorporate elements of that into my own work so that I can level up. And then finding people who we trust. There are workshops out there that will take your money and tell you you're great and won't really give you a lot to work on. But finding people you trust who will give you real, honest, actionable feedback, so you have some freaking concept of what to do next. Because if you don't, and if you constantly surround yourself with people that think you're great when maybe there are things you need to work on, you're just going to be spinning in your chair wondering what you're doing wrong, when like there might be places for you to grow as a performer. And yeah, like I said, I'm repeating myself, but it's on us to find out how to improve, and it's a challenge. It's a great undertaking.
Yeah. And for VO, it's not about how many characters that you could pull off. I mean, well, if you have a range that's magnificent, that's wonderful. It's not like I know that the number one important thing to focus on is, of course, acting, but there's also like, breaking down a script and, a character development. Like if you're recording for anime or video games, there's um, like not to get into the technical stuff like the sound quality and stuff like that, but it's like, yeah, so it's like you break down a character and then you figure out, okay, so where are they in the story? Who are they talking to? I'm all about the Meisner acting, um, and making specific choices because I know, and you mentioned Crispin Freeman earlier, which I kind of want to touch upon that because I know for Crispin, and for anybody that has taken his classes, which highly recommended. Really great. He breaks down like who am I talking to and what is the emotional response from your scene partner. So it's like, okay, so why am I saying this and what do I expect from the person that I'm talking to? It's like, what do I want? It's there's a lot of different acting like, styles or, you know, you kind of mold into your own niche as you go along, but it's about taking what you've learned from the teachers and then applying it into your own. And the same can also be said if you're um, playing a character, like, okay, so who is this character? What's their personality? And, blah, 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 and how they develop over the course of the series. So, with you personally, you might have touched upon this in other interviews, but with your, I guess, style when it comes to performing, like, I know it's something that you kind of learned over time with like, okay, so how did they do it? And then you kind of applied it into your own. Um, and then you've worked on it for like 5 years. So in the whole process, um, would you say that it was something like are there still areas like when it comes to finding your own like process when it comes to performing or acting? Would you say that it's still a struggle for you, or is it just kind of something that you just kind of okay, I know what I'm doing, and it's something that is just like once you found your own like quirks or anything like when it comes to performing, like when you're playing a character, was it something that just kind of came more naturally over time, or there's still like areas that you felt that like, huh, you know what? Maybe I should probably work on this. What's your little process?
Both. I mean,
Yes, story
we're always improving and leveling
improvement.
up. You know,
Yeah,
no one's ever done and is like all the actor they're ever going to actor. You know, like there's always places for us to grow and improve and be inspired by other people. Um, Something that you'd mentioned a little while ago. Uh, Richard Horvitz also
yeah,
has done
Richard.
a lot of
Yep.
that character prep, and I know Crispin Freeman studied under Richard Horvitz, so it's not surprising that they have a similar
Oh yeah.
philosophy. But
Yep.
so much of what we have to do when we create, excuse me, our characters is use our imagination, because oftentimes we can't see the other characters and we don't see the space and the circumstances. So much of it,
Imagination.
yeah, is creating that imagination space, like being like we were kids, creating that imagination space in our head and living that, openly and honestly and fully. Um, and when you're auditioning, you frequently will have a series of lines that are from different moments in a story and have very limited context, and it's up to us to make it make sense. And so we have maybe a sentence, and we have to, if they don't give it to us, have to be able to make something up and find a world and imagine a circumstances and think about who we're talking to and like how far away they are, and how I'm feeling about this exchange, and if I'm furious or if I'm distraught, and and essentially create all of that extra stuff around us in our head. I find myself sometimes, and I know not every actor does this, but like sometimes when I'm in a class or I'm doing an audition, I will like soft focus. The room will get blurry. I'll just be somewhere in my head having that exchange and then hopefully remembering the line, because sometimes I stop looking at the screen because I get in the moment and then I realize I completely don't know what I need to say. But trying not to do that, and kind of get lost in your head a little bit, kind of like playing imagination. And this is a bit of an audition strategy that you can take or leave. It probably doesn't work for everybody, but I want to make sure every line feels different and demonstrates something different. So sometimes that means making up stuff and occasionally like veering away from where I think they're asking me to go, just so I can make sure I'm showing them different things and not just all the same thing. And so if I have a series of lines and I'm like, these are all just happy and seem like he's having a great time talking to somebody, and that means I'm going to show them the same flavor 4 times in a row, like how can I change this up? Maybe if he's saying, thanks for that, I really appreciate it, I'm like, okay, well, what if I'm pissed? What if this is sarcasm or spite. And, so instead of everything being happy, thanks, I really appreciate that, becomes thanks, I really appreciate that. Maybe the next one down, I imagine that, um, hey, hey, we should go over there, becomes, what if I was like 25 feet back because they got a head start and I'm catching up? And so I show them something different by giving them some elevated volume. And I'm like, hey, we should go over there. And I show them as many different things as I can, even if what's on the page isn't quite asking for it. Because over the course of working on that story, you're going to have to go to all of those places, and you want to show them that you can, hit those different ranges. Not everyone's good at putting together sides. Not every side is going to ask for, the full spectrum of where a character can go. And I personally believe that showing them, showing the studio or the casting director that you can go the distance, maybe showing them something they weren't expecting but actually need to know you can do, can be like a secret weapon. Um, man, did that even answer your question?
Good. Um, Speaking of questions, there's gonna be more that I'm gonna ask for part two, so stay tuned. And if you like this so far, let me know in the comments. And stay tuned for more, and we'll see y'all in the next part coming shortly.
Who's gonna
Ta
catch it?
ta!